Your town, your station, your voice. Afternoons on Calon FM. Listen online at calon.fm.
It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
By the rivers of Babylon, I think. There's a little thing about that song that just makes you go, oh my lord, I feel like a child again. Wonderful. You're listening to the Stage and Screen Show with me, Andy Snowden, here on 105 Calon FM, and you're more than welcome to it. Right, who remembers this?
The winner of Britain's Got Talent 2020 is Jon Courtenay!
We booked a cruise on the internet, we booked it last July.
Jon Courtenay is an English singer, pianist, entertainer and comedian known for winning the 14th series of Britain's Got Talent in 2020. Having previously been awarded the Golden Buzzer during his audition by presenters Ant and Dec, he was the first ever Golden Buzzer act to win in the history of the show. Since then, he has toured all over the country, including a fantastic run at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival earlier this year. Coming up in December, he is going to be starring in the Pantomime over in St Helens Theatre Royal. I shall tell you all about that in a moment, but first things first, I am joined by the man himself on the Stage and Screen Show. Jon, it is absolutely wonderful to speak to you, my man, and funny enough, I mean, I ask everybody at the start of my interviews these days about their experience of COVID and the lockdown and the whatnot, but I think it's fair to say that you had a rather more interesting experience than most, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things I'll always be grateful for, that my whole TV experience gave the whole family something to focus on, really. You know, like all people in our business, I hadn't worked for a long time during lockdown, and it was becoming a really scary time. So it gave us all something to focus on, and worked out better than I could have dreamt, really.
And I mean, nobody knew really how the 18 months were gonna pan out. But you started your Britain's Got Talent journey in 2019. You must have feared that the whole thing was going to be scrapped, right?
There was talk of it. I mean, it would have been very cruel. I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I finally got my break, and then of course everything went to hell in a handbasket, and at one point they said that they would never do it without a live audience, and I was quite prepared to do it without a live audience just to carry on doing the show. Yeah. But thankfully they found a way around it with those incredible virtual walls, so yeah, it was great.
But I don't think it's a spoiler to say that you won
I hope not. 2 years ago.
Yeah, in 2020. You're the first. You're famous for being the first Golden Buzzer winner. You were Ant and Dec's Golden Buzzer winner. Explain to us what that's like at first, because to get that recognition from people like Ant and Dec must be fantastic.
It was amazing. It took me a long time to realise what was going on, because I was they'd used, but by the time I auditioned, I was the last act in London before they went up to Manchester to carry on with the auditions, and they'd already used, I think, 3 of the 5 golden buzzers, which of course makes no difference because they don't broadcast it in order or anything. But in my head, the statistics were against me, you know, the odds were against me. And then when Ant and Dec first came out, I thought they'd come out because something had gone wrong. So I'd been watching the show all day during the auditions. And if they need to kill a bit of time for whatever reason, Ant and Dec normally come out on stage and have a chat with the audience or chat to the judges, and it's quite entertaining. So when they first came out, I thought something had gone wrong. I thought we were going to have to refilm it or something because somebody forgot to press record on the camera or something. Yeah. So it took me, and then of course they have to walk right across the stage and down the steps and then up the steps so it took ages. My son was next to me at the time yelling, "Dad, you've done it, you've done it!" And it took me a long time. If you watch my face on the playback on YouTube, I look very bewildered for far too long before I realised what's going on. But it was amazing.
Absolutely. And then you covered completely in golden ticker tape, and it just looks absolutely amazing. There's no getting away from it.
Yeah, it's very strange. I've seen it back a few times. You know, every now and then I'll walk past the lounge, and my kids are watching it on the telly or something on record, and it still doesn't seem that it was me. It's like watching somebody else, and it's been like that ever since. Very strange.
And I think for the audience, it's very aware. They're aware that it stands out immediately when a performer turns up on Britain's Got Talent, who is as honed a performer as you were, and as you say, you've been doing it for a fair old number of years now, a couple of decades. So when did it start then for you, this?
Oh God, I mean, it's all I've ever really done. My parents were both on stage, sort of semi-professionally. They had normal jobs as well, but I used to go and watch them do shows. So I think I got the bug at a very young age. I remember being taken backstage when I was about 4 or 5, one of my mum's shows, and seeing the audience from the wings of the stage and just feeling this huge buzz of excitement, which for most people would absolutely petrify them. I mean, I think it's the number one fear, standing on stage and speaking in public. More people are scared of that than they are of dying, which is incredible, because I just stood there and just wanted to be sort of on stage. So we're all a bit weird performers, I think, that want to talk in public. It's a very strange vocation. Yeah. So that was a really young age when I sort of got the bug, and then I started doing comedy magic when I was a kid. I got into doing magic tricks like a lot of kids do, and that stuck with me for many years. And the piano really came into the show in sort of my early 20s. I started performing the comedy and writing comedy songs and stuff. So yeah, the show was developing for many, many years, and still is. I'm always writing and working on it and trying to make it better. Yeah.
You must always be writing and working on it. It's one of those things that every day you must get an idea to jot something down.
Yeah, well, I'm also getting booked for a lot of shows where people want bespoke songs written. I mean, which is weird, because I mean, I never really thought myself as much of a songwriter. I always wrote little ditties and parodies and jokes in songs and stuff. But the thought of sitting down and actually writing a whole song from scratch, I didn't do that very often. But ever since BGT, that's my thing now. I mean, people are booking me to do shows and saying, oh, this is our company or this is our charity or whatever it is. Could you write us a song and make it funny and make it feel good? And I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm spending hours in the studio trying to write stuff, which is great. I mean, I love being tested, and it's going really well, actually. I think it makes every show very unique when you've got an audience that know that you've written something bespoke for them. It's kind of cool,
Absolutely. And incredibly, I mean, that was the other thing that I think impressed everybody, that all your songs on Britain's Got Talent were original. They were all very different. They were bang up to date, from your first audition to your semi and the final. And again, for the role variety, everything was... It was so original and up to date. It is quite impressive when you do that.
Well, some people might argue that it was unfair because I had longer to do it. I had a lot of time at home locked in my studio. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I think for an act like yourself, and it stood out for me because I've always been a fan of Victoria Wood did it, and Tim Minchin, Vicky Stone.
Of course.
You can have a comedy song, and then on just spinning on a halfpenny, you can have the audience crying their eyes out with such an emotional song. That's quite impressive to be able to do that.
Yeah, I've always thought that, I mean, you can cry with laughter, and obviously you can cry with sadness, and it's a very short distance between the two. And I think if you can get used to I don't want to say trick, because it makes it sound like it's not heartfelt, but if you can pull the rug out from under people, you sort of disarm them slightly. You make them laugh, and it's fun, and it's frivolous, and then suddenly you put a line in there which makes them, it's like a punch to the emotional gut sometimes. People go, wow, I didn't see that coming, or there's a moral to the song or something. But, I think laughter can be so effective. I think it's a great British trait that we've always laughed in the face of adversity. Uh-huh. And that was really my sort of idea during the whole lockdown thing. I thought, so many people are suffering in the most unimaginable ways. And I thought we have to tap into that British trait of looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, even though it was hard to see sometimes. And it was tough for myself to sort of see it as well. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to win. So even when it was all over, I didn't know what life sort of held. But you've got to try and find the optimism and look forward to... I'm generally a pretty upbeat guy, pretty optimistic. And we've done that for years, I think. We did it in the Second World War. We sung songs about Hitler, even though what he was doing was so atrocious. And it got the stiff upper lip, it got us through it. So
yeah,
I think we did it again in 2020, yeah.
And on that note, I mean, I read you were, just before the final, you were diagnosed with skin cancer just weeks before the live shows. So you literally had a juxtaposition of having one of the most exciting periods of your life with one of the most scary, all mixed together. Incredible. It
really was. I mean, I haven't analysed it too much. But I mean, I was actually diagnosed just after my audition back in January. We filmed it in January, and it was I got the diagnosis just before the semi-finals, and then I had to have the operation, and then got the all clear, and then it came back, and it was going on. So I was in between, dashing down to the studios and stuff. I was in hospital, and it was really weird, as you say, the highlight of my career and the scariest thing I've ever been through. And I guess I was channeling some of that. I mean, when I was sort of singing about my family and my mum and dad and stuff, I guess in the back of my mind was that thought that, this could be it. I mean, it was a really scary time, but then at the same time trying to sort of look forward to the future. So, but whatever it did to me, it did the right thing. I'm okay now, thank goodness, and came out the other side of it and feel the better for it, really.
Fantastic. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about the whole semi-final and final, and again the Royal Variety. They were all done without an audience. Was there, I wonder, an element of disappointment that it was like that for you? That was your experience of it?
Yeah, I mean, you won't hear me complain about any of my experience because it really was great. Even if I hadn't have won, it was a great fun experience to do it. But yeah, I mean, I've been performing to live audiences my whole career, and there's something about it. I think even for the audience as well, there's a certain atmosphere, a certain energy that you get with a room full of strangers that are sitting down, maybe to laugh together or watch a live show, that you can't emulate. You can't replicate that any other way. It's not the same watching TV, even with a group of friends at home. You've got to be in a theatre or a studio. And that energy that's in the air is something that I normally tap into. You come out on stage, it doesn't matter how tired you are, if you've got sick. I've been on stage with flu, barely able to get out of bed, but you walk on stage and something just kicks in, and it kicks in because you've got that energy in the air, and it's just not the same when you've got 2,000 TV screens looking back at you. It's very weird. You've got to try and tap into something else. But it was a bit weird. But as you say, thank goodness it still went ahead. They found a way to do it, so it was good.
Yeah, but I think that's everybody. It didn't matter how technically minded you were. We all seem to think outside the box and try to just keep things going as normal as possible. But for a comedian, it sounded like a lot of the like the laughter was kind of canned on. Is that fair to say, or could you hear the laughter?
No, we couldn't hear it from the TV screens. It was too much for them to manage that much audio. But then at the same time, it was a competition. So I believe that all the audio was live audio, but it was put on afterwards rather than put on live in the studio. So yeah, the only feedback we could actually hear was from the judges and a few of the cameramen chuckling along if they heard something that they like. If you make the cameramen laugh, you know you're doing something right, because they're quite jaded and they've seen it all before. So it was always nice to get a smile from a producer or a cameraman. Yeah. But yeah, we certainly couldn't hear what you could hear on the broadcast, which was, again, a bit disconcerting for a comedian especially. Yeah, absolutely.
My cousin actually, she I think there was competition, wasn't there, to win tickets to sit on Zoom. And the winners of that almost became as popular, as famous as the acts. It was rather funny.
Yeah, it was good. I spent a lot of my semi-final show trying to spot my family because they were there somewhere. Yeah. And there was literally 2,000. At one point, I was doing my song and I sort of had to snap out of it. I'm like, what are you doing? This is being filmed and you're trying to spot your family on a screen. Focus on the performance, you idiot. What are you doing?
But then comes November, and part of the prize, famously, is to go on the Royal Variety. What was that like for you?
We did. We didn't have the live audience. I mean, they did it slightly differently. They put TV screens in the theatre seats, so you could actually see people, which was very weird. But yeah, it was the Blackpool Opera House, a huge theatre, and just a show that I've watched with my family. As I say, my mum and dad were both in the business, so the Royal Variety was a show that we always watched together. Mm-hmm. And anyone had been on it. All my heroes had performed on it. Over the last 100 years, going back to sort of Laurel and Hardy and stuff, it's an incredible piece of British history. So it didn't bother me. They could have, again, so long as it went ahead. I mean, Prince Charles was on a Zoom call at the beginning. We didn't have royalty there. It was the Royal Variety Show with no audience and no royalty. So very weird. But again, I'm part of that history, and it was an incredible honour to be a part of it. And I met some really cool people too. I was on with some fun people.
Fantastic. And you're about to do pantomime. We better talk about that. Cinderella, St. Helens. Tell us about that. What's going on?
Well, it's exciting. We did the press launch last week. It's my first panto in like 20 years, because when I had my one-man show, I was always working at Christmas. I mean, it can be quite a lucrative time, whether it's in this country or the cruises or the hotel industry, the corporate industry. So I was off doing shows every year, and even when Panto came up, I was like, I can't afford to take out, however many weeks it is doing Panto. But then once you've been on the telly, they offer you a bit more money, and you get your name on, your headline in the show.
Yep.
And I've always wanted to do it. I mean, I was an Ugly Sister 20 years ago, and it's just a great feeling to be back in a cast again. Doing my one-man show, it can be a bit lonely, driving up and down the motorways in the car just with your roadie or your AV sound and tech guys. So this is going to be great. I met the cast last week. They're absolutely delightful. And I can't wait to get my teeth into it. We got the scripts out last week. It's very funny. A big production. A lot of money got into the production. And I'm really proud to be a part of it. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
It does look like a biggie. There's yourself, as you say, Kimberly Hart-Simpson from Coronation Street, and another Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, Jamie's there. Yeah. We were comparing notes at the press launch. It was very funny.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I always love pantomime. I'm a stickler for it, and it's always been my cup of tea. From a child to an adult, it's never left me. I love it.
Cool, come up and see us.
Yeah, marvellous. Well, you're at the Theatre Royal St Helens from the 3rd of December until the 8th of January. That's a long run as well, which is lovely. That usually they only last a couple of weeks.
It is a long run, and also it's not too far from. I live just the other side of Manchester, so I can get home whenever I want to. I was a bit worried when the offers were coming in for Panto. There was stuff down in Southampton and Portsmouth and Bristol. And, I've got 2 kids, and my deal has always been to be at home for Christmas, ever since we had kids. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, I'd always try and be at home. Well, I always was at home since the kids were born. So when the offer came in from St Helens, I was more than happy because I can get home and see the family more often than I would otherwise. So, it's going to be great fun.
Fantastic. Jon Courtenay, it's been an absolute treat to speak to you, my friend. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries at all. You take care and have a lovely Christmas.
Cheers, you too.
Cheers, man.
I woke up in the early hours due to a small...
Absolutely fantastic. Britain's Got Talent winner from 2020, Jon Courtenay on the Stage and Screen Show. He's going to be starring at the Theatre Royal in St Helens from the 3rd of December until the 8th of January in their Christmas pantomime Cinderella. Box office number for Theatre Royal St Helens 01744 756 000. 01744 756 000. Go on, support your local theatres, ladies and gentlemen. They won't be there forever if you don't.
It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.